Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope my voice is clearly audible. Right, you can simply raise your hands to confirm this. All right, great, guys. So we'll proceed ahead with the discussion further, right? And all right, so let's get ahead and allow me to share my screen. Right, so this is basically the data set, or this is basically the sample data that we have used in yesterday's session, right? To see or to check a few formulas, how they can be used, right? For various use cases. Today, what we'll do is I'll show you an additional data set, right? All right, so to discuss a few more functions here, right? So this is basically a data set, right? And I'll walk you through this data, don't worry, right? And this data we'll discuss a few more functions in Excel, right? Just give me a moment. Right, so here, if you look at this data, right, this is basically a data set of an, you can say it's an data of an employee database, right, where a few information about the employees is being mentioned. Right, I'll walk you through each and every column, and based on this data, we'll work on a few additional functions apart from what we have already done in yesterday's session, right? Right, so let's say I'll just walk you through the first column of your data is basically the employee ID, right? And this employee ID will help us to identify each record or each employee precisely. All right. Now, moving on to the next column here is the name of the employee. This is the full name of the employee, right? Followed by this is the designation of the employee in the organization, right? And here, this is the department in which the employee works, right? And this is the basically business unit, right? Within the department, there are multiple business units, right? So this column specifies the business unit in which the employee work, right? This is the gender of the employee. This is ethnicity of the employee, whether an employee is an Asian, Caucasian, Latino, or Black, right? So this basically is the ethnicity here. This represents the age of the employee, right? Next is the joining date, right? This is the date on which employee started his services, right? Next is this is the annual salary employee withdraws from the organization, right? You can say this is the CTC of the employee, all right? And next is the annual hike, right? This column basically represents the hike the employee has received in the previous hike season, right? Followed by this is the country of residence. This is the country to which the employee belongs, right? Followed by this is the city of residence, right? City in which employee works, all right? Followed by, of course, this is the date of resignation, right? If any employee has left the organization, basically we'll have the resignation date present against that employee, right? So don't worry, I'll share this data set with you on a GitHub link, right? I'll create a GitHub link and share it with you, this data, right? So the first and foremost thing we'll do is we'll format this range of data into a table, right? So that various operations can be applied. Slicing can be done based on column names, right? So what we'll do is we'll select the complete data using Control A, right? So this will only select the cells up till where the data is present, right? So just for everyone's information, we have 1000 number of records present, right? This data set contains 1000 records. The first and foremost thing is we'll format this data as a table, right? So that's searching, sorting, merging, these kind of operations is easy to apply, right? Filters, etc. Right. So to do that, what you can do is you can simply go to insert and click on this table tab here, right? Or you can directly press Control T to format your data as a table. All right. Now I'll do the same thing. This window will pop up here. I hope everyone is able to see this popped up window, right? So this window will basically ask you for the range of data you want in your table, right? And next is there's a disclamation that says my table has headers, right? So if your column already has column names, right, you have to tick this option. So since in our data, column names are not present, so what we'll do is we'll untick this option, all right? And then click OK, right? So you'll see the data set has been formatted as a table, right? And there are a lot of customizations that can be done. For example, you can filter out each of the data types here. You can sort the data A to Z, or filter by colors. You can apply any kind of text filter, etc. Right. So this is basically feasibility, right? And also you can see, although the name of the column is not very precise here, what I'll do is let's say I'll change the formatting to maybe black and white will work. Okay, let's see. All right, so it's not working, not a problem, right? We'll change the font color of the header, right? So we'll simply mention the header as red. I hope this color is visible now, right? So this is basically the name of the columns, right? That has been added manually. What the first thing that we'll do is we'll rename all the columns, right? All at once. So this is my employee ID. I'll simply mention this is my employee ID, followed by the next column contains the name of the employee. So I'll simply mention, let's say employee underscore name, right? Next is the designation, right? So this is the designation column. Next is the department. We'll name each and every column for easy feasibility and easy understanding, right? This is the business unit, right? Followed by this, the gender of the employee, followed by this is ethnicity, right? Followed by the age of the column. Next is the joining date, right? Next is the annual salary, right? Next column is the hike in the last hike season, right? Next is the country of residence, followed by the city of residence, and followed by the resignation date. All right. So these are a few things that we have done on our data, right? We can clearly see the data has been formatted, right? And based on this, we'll use various functions here, right? So the first thing that could be done is, right, let's apply some feasibility here, right? What we'll do is we'll convert this gender column, right, into either M for a male or as an F for a female, right? So what could be done is I'll insert a new column here, right? We'll simply shorten this. So this could be done easily using if and else that we have discussed in yesterday's session. I'll simply use the if function, right? Logic test is, let's say if this value is equals to female, right? If this value is equals to female, then I'll simply replace this with capital F. Otherwise, I'll replace this with capital F, right? Since I already know we don't have any third gender here, hence all these values will be filled out with either F or M based on whether the gender is male or female, right? You can see throughout the column, this has been applied right? And the records are present up till 1000, right? It's 1001 here because the first column in my data or first row in my data contains the name of the column. All right. So we have 1000 records, and this is how this can be done. Right. Next is, let's say if I ask you how many male employees are there in the organization or how many female employees are there. Right. So this could also be done very easily using the count function. Right. So we'll start. There are various variations of count function. Let me list down here. Right. We have, let's say, a simple count function. Then we have count blank. Right. Then we have count A. All right. Then we have count if functions. We have count ifs function. Right. The multiple functions related to count, we'll see them one by one. All right. So just to give you this idea, count function will basically count the number of cells. Right. It will count the number of cells that contain a number. Right. So when I talk about this, let's say it will simply count all the columns or all the rows, right, based on whether it contains a number or not. Right. For example, if I apply count A on, let's say, these four selected cells, right, it will return me 0 because count function will only count where number is present. Text is not a number, which is why this will not be counted. Right. We can get rid of this by using the count A function. Right. So this will basically count the number of cells that is not empty. Right. It might contain anything, number, alphabet, combination of numbers or alphabets. Right. So count A function will work here. And if I apply the count A function on same selected data, right, so we'll get some value as the output 4, 5 based on how many cells we are selecting. All right. We'll see the practical application of each of this. Don't worry. All right. Next is the count blank function, right? So this will count the, let's say, number of empty cells. You can say empty cells, right? So cells like this, if I want to see how many cells are empty within the resignation column, I can simply use the count blank function to get the total number of blank values or blank cells, right? This way I'll get to know how many employees are currently working, and out of 1000, we'll simply minus this from 1000 and we'll get to know how many total employees have resigned already, right? Moving on, count if basically works, right? Count if basically works, it will count cells based on a condition, right? So the condition could be anything, all right? As we have discussed in yesterday's session, condition could be anything, right? You can make a comparison greater than equal to, less than or greater than greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, right? Not equal to, these kind of things. A basic comparison. Otherwise, you can compare the text as well, like how in yesterday's session we checked whether the name is same or not, right? And based on that, the we have displayed a particular value, right? In the similar way, in the count if the conditions can be anything, and the counting will be done based on that condition, right? So, for example, I asked you how many male or female employees are present in this database, right? So we can simply do that using countif function. All right. Now, moving on, countifs will do the exact same thing what countif does, right? But countif will work with a single condition, and countifs will work with multiple conditions, right? And will be applied with the countif, right? So, for example, if I ask you how many employees are belong to United States, as well as are maybe females, right? So how many female employees belongs to United States? This kind of question could be answered using COUNTIF because two conditions are to be tested. First, the gender has to be female, and second is the country has to be United States, right? So this way, COUNTIFs can be applied where more than one condition needs to be tested, right? And you can apply this on as many number of conditions as you wish to. All right. So yes, guys, I hope everyone is able to follow this. I'll simply mention this as well. Count cells based on multiple conditions or more than one condition. Right. So you can simply raise your hands we're able to follow up till here so that we can see the practical application of each of it. All right, great. So we'll move ahead, right? And let's talk about, let's see, and start using these functions one by one, right? So the first is we're going to use the count function, right? Let me highlight the cell for easy reference, right? So let's see how many male employees are present and how many female employees are present, right? So this could be easily done. Okay, so let's not start with male or female employees. Let's see the total count of employees present, right? So total employees, right? Total employees, that is, though who are working in this organization, right? Total employees can easily be identified by the employee ID, right? The total number of employee IDs we have, that many number of employees are currently working, right? So here, what we'll do is we'll select values for this particular column here, all right, which is a column, and make sure that you remember that the first record of the first row here, right? How the first row here contains the name of the column, right? So any output that you'll get, either you have to select the data from cell 2 onwards or row number 2 onwards, or you can select the complete data and subtract 1 just for the name of the column present. All right. So here, let's say if I ask you how many total number of employees are present, based on these formulas, can anyone tell me, and based on this description here, right, can anyone tell me if I want to apply this on employee ID, which of the functions is feasible to use? Right. And just to give you this idea that employee ID is the combination of alphabets and numbers, right? So it's the combination of alphabet and numbers. And out of these functions, let's say if I ask you which of these functions could be used. All right, so we are getting count A and count F as well. All right, so these are the three answers that we are getting: count A, and count F. Now, all right, now look at this particular column, right? Can anyone tell me what is basically what could be a data type of this? Let's say, is it a alphabetical character, or let's say it's a purely a number, right? And let's say we can clearly see this is the combination of an alphabet and numbers, right? So this although falls into the category of alphanumeric, right? But any alphanumeric characters is treated as alphabets only, right? Because you learn that in Python or when you're dealing with data, right? Numbers are also present as characters, right? Or which means numbers are also treated as the characters or alphabets, right? So here, let's say there's a difference when I write something like this, 2, right? Or if I write a 2 like this, right? This is basically considered as alphabet, but this is a number, right? So you'll be able to make this particular difference very easily when you'll dive into Python, right? All the alphanumeric characters are treated as alphabets, right? Or categories, values, right? So here we'll be using count A because a combination of alphabet and a number is surely not cannot be considered as a number, right? Which is why I will be using count A because it will count non-empty cells, right? So let's see how this works, right? We'll simply be using count A function, and if you see, it says that it counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty, right? So not empty cells. it will count. So let's pass the value and let's pass the input as the complete column here. Right? Let's pass the complete column here. All right, so this is the input that we have provided. And once we close this bracket, the complete A column has been passed inside count A. If I execute this, it says 1001. And as I've already told you, the first row here contains the name of the column, right? So you can simply subtract 1 for that. And the total count of employees is 1000. All right. So this is how you can count the total number of employees. Or let's say if I ask you, since the total number of employees can be calculated based on various parts here, right? For example, name as well, because every employee has a name, which is why all the columns or all the rows in the employee name column basically contains some or the other value, right? So count A can be applied on this as well. But the best possible scenario here will be employee ID because it's a unique identifier. It will help you to clearly differentiate between, like you could clearly differentiate each of your employees, right? Like how everyone holds a passport number and no two people can have same passport number. In the similar way, the employee ID here is uniquely given to every single employee working in this organization. All right. So this is the best feasible column here. This is called primary key when you'll work with SQL tables. This kind of columns can be considered as a primary key, right? That will help you to uniquely identify each of your employees, right? So this is how, let's say, the count A function can be used. So let's mention the count A here instead of count because we have used count A here. Right, in the similar way, let's say you can apply the count function here, right? And count function will only count the total number of cells that contain a number, right? So here, let's say if I ask you, right, let's say if you want to use the count function, it can only be applied in selected columns here. For example, the first column that it can be applied on is the age column because it contains numbers, right? Second is the joining date, right? Date column is also a number in Excel, right? If you want, you can represent this or change the formatting of this to a general number, right? And you'll see numbers appearing here. And this number is nothing but the total number of days from the 1st of January 1900, right? That is the starting calendar, right? That is the starting calendar of your starting date of the Excel calendar. All right. So this is how these numbers can be interpreted, right? Otherwise, since they do not have any importance like this, I want to simply display them as a date, which is why we can simply mention this as a date, right? So we have long date, short date. It's purely your choice. How you want to see the date. You want to see a date like this, or you want the longer format of date where day along with the month and date and year is present, right? So this is how count function can be used on the joining date column as well. Next is the salary column, right? In salary column as well, count function can be used. Hike is also a number, right? This is also a number. And resignation date also contains numbers because it contains dates, right? So this is how it can be easily used. So let's say if I want to see how many people are drawing salaries, right? So I can simply use the count function on the salary column, right? Use the count function on the salary column and I'll get the total number of employees who are drawing salaries, right? So this is again 1000 and make sure you don't have to subtract 1 here when you're using count because the first row here contains the name of the column, and name of the column is not a number, right? This is not a number, which is why you don't have to subtract 1 here, right? So this is how the count function could be used, right? Next is the count blank function. This will basically count the total number of cells. Those are empty, all right? Count the empty cells here. Right, so how do you select a salary column? You simply, after inserting the formula, you can select directly from the column like this, all right? Moving on, let's say if you want to really make use of count blank function, we can see how many rows and columns Excel has, right? So let's say talking about the total number of rows and the total number of columns Excel has, right? So let's see, because it counts the blank cells here, right? So the total number of rows can easily be we can easily get by selecting any column that does not contain any data, right? So I can use the count blank function here, and it will count the number of empty cells specified in the range, right? And this could be, let's say, P column. Since it does not contain any data, I'll get the total number of rows here, right? Those are empty, right? And we can see the total number of rows that we have is it's 1,048,576, right? So this is the total number of rows Excel has, and the total number of columns can again be taken using the count blank function here, right? And you can select any empty row to get the total number of columns, right? So I'll simply select, let's say, this particular row here. You can see this is the function that we are using and the value that we have specified, right? Once I hit enter, I'll get the total number of columns here, right? So 16,384 is the total number of columns in the data. Right? So these are the total number of rows and columns in an Excel sheet, right? It's a blank Excel sheet. And this is the range of data that you can insert on an Excel sheet. And this is for one sheet. You can have multiple sheets like this. Right? So this is how count blank could be used. Let's say if I want to ask you how many employees have let's say how many employees have resigned from the organization, you can use the count function on the resignation date column, right? So if I ask you, let's say how many employees have resigned, right? So basically we need to count the total number of rows that contain a date in the resignation date column, right? Because this is the date of resignation of the employee. If it is empty, it's basically the employee has not resigned yet, right? So here what we'll do is we'll use the count blank function, right? I'll simply use the count blank function on the resignation date, right? Let's see. Uh, I presume it should work because it's a copied and pasted data, right? So if you paste data, the empty cells within the data are filled out with a blank white space, right? So white space is a character and it might not contain the, right? So, okay. I think we are using the wrong formula here. How many employees have resigned, right? So the total number of employees, those have resigned, you have to use the count function because this will count the total number of cells that contain a number, right? So let's say I'll simply use the count function on the resignation date column like this, right? The complete column has been selected. I'll close this and total, there are 85 employees out of 1000 who have resigned, right? Next, we can see the total employees who have not resigned, or let's say the employees who are still working with the organization. You can simply use either the count blank function here and pass in the salary column up till 1001, right? Or you can subtract 1000, or you can subtract 85 from 1000, right? And you'll get the output, right? So like this, you can simply use, let's do it either ways. Let's say I'll use the count blank function, and else this time what I'll do is I'll start my range with O2. This is O2, the cell that is highlighted, right? And I'll go up till O1001. Right? This is the range of data I'm selecting, because count blank will count blank values. And if I select the complete column, the total number of rows, those are present. You can see these are the total number of rows, and only 85 will be subtracted from this, and you'll get the output, which will be completely wrong, right? So we'll be selecting the data up till 1001 only, because up till there, my records are present, right? So I'll simply hit OK here. And this says 915 cells are there within this range. Those are empty, right? Which means the employees have not resigned yet. All right. Now, moving on, I will be discussing an interesting function called the countIf function, right? This is the function that will help you to count based on a given condition, right? And here, let's say if I ask you how many male employees are working in the organization or how many female employees are there, we'll carry out this counting using the countIf function, right? Let's see how this can be used. I can simply use the countIf here, right? And if you say it counts the number of cells within a range that meet a given condition. All right, so let's execute this. You see, there are two things. Those are to be specified here. First is the range, and second is the criteria, right? So range is basically the area where you want to search for, right? And criteria is the criteria that you want to search for. All right. So let's say if I want to count the total number of male employees in the organization, what I'll do is I'll simply select the gender column only, right? And I'll count, and in the criteria, I'll mention male. So it will count the total number of male employees, right? So how this range can be specified, you simply select the gender column. This is my complete gender column. I'll be selecting this completely, right? After that, what I'll do is I'll put a comma here. In criteria, I'll mention what exactly I want to search, right? So I want to search for male here, right? So it will basically count how many times male is appearing in the gender column, right? So once I hit enter, it says 482. All right. So 482 is nothing but the total number of males working in the organization. Right. So guys, I see a few of you are raising hands. You can let me know your concern in the chat section. Right. So advice, please do not raise hands unnecessarily. Right. If you have any concerns, you could let me know in the chat section. All right. So don't worry if you're not able to follow, we'll be performing same steps multiple times, right? We'll be using this function multiple times so that you get it, right? And don't worry, until you practice, you will not get this completely, right? See, understanding, right? Let's say understanding data science is purely a game of practice. Until you write with your own hands using your own logic, it will be very hard to understand. right? So which is why I've always advised you not to practice along with the session, right? Please practice it once the session is uploaded in your uh, LMS. All right. And always try to understand what you have been asked, right? And based on that only, you'll be able to form your solutions, right? And please note, you don't have to, mug up things. Don't have to mug up anything. It's purely the logic that we are applying, right? I see a few of you are asking about, let's say, how many employees have resigned and how many employees have not resigned. How did we come up with these numbers, right? So I'll just repeat this part. Let's say how many employees have resigned. If you understand this question, what has been asked, right? How many employees have resigned? How can you work on this data? Just look at this data, right? Which of the columns you can pick that will give you this information, right? The best possible column that can give you this information is resignation date. Because if an employee has resigned, he will have a resignation date. Someone who has not resigned will not have a resignation date, right? So with this logic, you can use, right? This is the first logic. And the second logic is these are a few functions with a certain capabilities, right? Learn about these functions and try to find which of these functions can be applied on resignation date column so that I get how many employees have resigned, right? So since these dates or the values those are present here are numbers, right? These are numbers or dates. You can see it's formatted as a date, right? It's a number format. It's formatted as a date, right? So this is, since it's formatted as a date, which is a number, right? So you can use either the count blank function to find how many employees have not resigned, because against their name, you'll have empty values, right? And for the employees who have resigned, will have, let's say the employees, those who have resigned, will have a date present. So you can use count function here, right? At the same time, you can of course use count a function as well, because it will count the cells, those are not empty, right? So I'm not saying this is the only method you can use count a as well, right? But just to specify that these blank values or blank cells will be treated as a white space, right? And white space is not a empty value, right? So which is why the best function that we can use is the count function to find the total number of employees who have resigned, because this will count how many numbers are present in this range, right? So hence we have used the count function here to count the total number of numbers present in the resignation date column. All right. And in the similar way, how many employees have not resigned? If you break down this question, you'll find that using the resignation date column, if we count the total number of blank cells here, right? These are the employees who are still working and have not resigned, right? So we can simply use the count blank function here. All right. So don't worry, you'll get this with practice. The more you practice, the more, clear you will be about the kind of functions that could be used. Right. Now, moving on, let's say if we talk about this, the total number of male and female employees working in the organization, right? So we can use COUNTIF. I hope this is, reasonable to understand, right? This is reasonable to understand. If we count the total number of males appearing in the gender column, I'll be able to get the total number of male employees, right? In the similar way, I can use the total number of female employees as well, right? So here, since I want to use the feature of flash fill in Excel, right? So what I'll do is I'll simply remove this male and I'll pass the column or pass the cell that contains male, right? I've passed this cell so that I can use the feature of flash fill, because as I move down, male will be converted female and next respective cell will be calculated. All right. So guys, I see a few of you are asking this data continuously. I've already informed I'll be providing you this data set. Please have patience and please focus on what we are currently learning, right? Otherwise, if you miss out on these topics, these are basically the foundational things that we are doing, right? Please wait until the session ends. I'll share this data with you today itself. All right. Now, moving on. So we can simply use the cell that contains the male value, right? So that I can use the feature of flash fill here, right? And this will, of course, not change the result, but as I drop down here, this will simply count the total number of females as well, right? The same can be applied. So let's say if I ask you how many employees are working in, let's say, the finance department, right? How many employees are uh, working in the finance department? All right. So we can simply use the count if again, right? And instead of passing the gender column, I'll pass the department column this time. All right. I'll simply select the department column. This is my department column, right? And in the department, I'll simply mention finance, right? So again, I'll use the to use flash fill here. I'll simply use the finance department and we see 120 employees are working in the finance department. All right. In the similar way, we can check various other things. Let's say for other departments, of course, we can check, right? How many employees are present in other departments, right? Let's say if we check here, we have accounts, accounting department, engineering, HR, IT, mail, sales, and marketing, right? So let's list down a few columns here or few departments. So let's say, let's talk about the accounting, right? Then we have human resources, all right? Then we have the sales, marketing, right? We have engineering and right, finance is done. So these are basically the 6 departments. All right, we have IT as well, right? So we can use the same formula here for the next cell and we see 96 employees are working in the accounting department as well. All right. In the similar way, once I move down, I'll be able to see the total employees working in the HR department, 125. All right. Next is, if we see in the sales department, 140 employees. If we see in the marketing department, again, 120 employees. Moving to the engineering department, 158. And moving to the IT department, we have 241, right? So the highest number of employees that we have is 241 working in the IT department. Right? So this way you can easily find, use the countif function for your feasibilities, right? So for example, let's say if I want to count how many employees, right? How many employees maybe belongs to United States, right? So this can also be done. Say this is states, right? So this can easily be done. You can use COUNTIF again, but here we have to change the column from, let's say, D to M, because D column contains the a department, but we are interested in counting, in taking the country column, right? Since we are counting on United States. So we'll take the M column here that will contain. So this is the selected data already highlighted with blue, right? You can execute this and we can see there are 643 such employees belonging to United States. All right. So this is basically we are using flash fill here, taking one column at a time, right? So you can take maybe the department column here, which is present in the D column number, right? And we can mention the criteria as accounting to see how many employees are working in the accounting department, right? So this is how you can basically use count if, right? I hope count if is clear to everyone, right? You can simply raise your hands to confirm this. All right, great. So we'll move on to the next column or next topic here, right? So can we use any row from flash fill from the table? Yes, you can use any row, all right? And you can see a few columns here, right? You can see, of course, the outputs. All right, so you can select the relevant column and mention the criteria. You'll be able to get the output. Right, so this is how count if majorly works. And let's talk about count if now. IFS, right? Count ifs and count ifs basically, right? And count ifs will basically work when you want to mention more than one condition, right? So let's say how many male employees from United States. Right? How many male employees from United States? How this could be done? This could be easily done using count ifs, right? Count ifs here. And if you read the doc string, it says counts the number of cells specified by a given set of conditions or criteria, right? Like let's count them one by one, right? So we want to count the total number of males from United States, right? So if you break down this problem, we need to work on two different columns. I have to filter out all the males first. Then out of all those males, I have to filter out the people from United States, right? You can do this either ways or vice versa as well. You can filter out all the people from United States, right? And then you can filter out males out of them, right? So let's do this using count ifs, right? We'll first work on the gender column to filter out male, right? And we'll specify the same condition here that we have specified in count ifs. We'll select the gender column first, right? So this is my gender column. Right, this is the gender column, and next I'll mention the criteria here. The criteria will be male, right? So you can simply mention male here. Next, I'll follow the next. This is the one set of conditions. We have filtered out all the males in the organization, right? Next, what we'll do is we'll use the second criteria range, and the second criteria range will be the country column because I want to filter out all the people from United States. All right, so I'll simply select the country column here. This is my say criteria range, and I'll mention United States as the condition, right? I'll close this bracket and the formula is completed. Once I hit enter, I'll be able to know how many male employees belongs to United States, right? So once I hit enter, there are 309 such employees who are male and their country of residence is United States, right? So this will help you to carry out counting based on multiple conditions, right? You can combine these conditions, you can mention your own conditions here, and you'll be able to get the output, right? Let's see. uh, you know, more about it. Right? So there's no need of bracket for second condition. Uh, Basically, this is the formula, right? If you see the formula here, the inputs are provided in a series, right? We are not opening any extra bracket so that we need to close the bracket for the second condition, right? We are simply mentioning them in the series, which is why we don't have any closing bracket, right? The number of brackets that needs to be closed have a very simple rule. It is equal to the total number of brackets you have opened, right? If you see in this formula, we have opened only one bracket, hence we'll close only one bracket, right? If I mention one more, let's say closing bracket here at the end, right? This will throw an error saying there is a syntax error, right? So it says there's a typo error in your formula and try to correct it. It has corrected the typo error, right? You'll simply hit OK to accept the correction, and this is the output. Right? In a similar way, let's see, um, maybe if you want to carry out the analysis for whether this organization is biased towards any of the ethnicities or not, right? So for that, you can simply do a simple counting of how many employees are basically present from what ethnicity, right? So if you want to see how many, whether this organization is having some or the other kind of biasness, right, towards the ethnicities, you can check the total number of employees that belong to each ethnicity, right? Or whether if you want to see whether there's a gender bias in this organization or not, you can see the total number of count of male and female employees. You'll get a lot of idea from this, right? This is almost equal, and the same time, like it's more, the number of females are more, right? So we can come up to this conclusion that this organization is not biased though, right? We have almost 50-50% of the males and female employees, right? In the similar way, you can count the total number of, ethnicity based on ethnicity. So the type of ethnicities that we have, right, is basically first is Asian, right? Next is Caucasian, right? Then we have Latino, and then we have Black, right? So you can count the total number of employees belonging to each ethnicity, and you'll get the idea, right? So let's say we'll simply use COUNTIF here, one condition only. So one uh, COUNTIF will do the job, right? I'll select the ethnicity column here. This is the ethnicity column, right? And I'll mention the condition using the reference cells. So I want to count the total number of Asian employees, right? So there are 404. I can simply drag and drop this to see the count of other employees, right? So the least number of employees that we have belongs to Black ethnicity, right? You can further bifurcate this into males and females as well, uh, by simply using count ifs function, right? So let's do that. Let's say I want total number of Asian uh, males, right? And then I want to see Asian females, right? So this is basically the kind of data analysis we are performing here, right? With extracting the insights as well, right? So let's say I'll simply use count ifs and mention the criteria range. So males from United States, again, two columns, male, sorry, this is Asian males, right? So again, two columns here, ethnicity and the gender column, right? So we'll work one by one. Let's mention the ethnicity column here. This is the ethnicity column, and I want to filter out all the Asian employees, right? You can see the formula in the formula bar. If you're, if you're confused where to check, right? And then followed by a comma, then all the males, right? So I'll simply mention male here, and I'll close this bracket to get the total count. This says 197 males who are Asian, right? And then I'll copy this formula because only male has to be changed to female. So I'll simply, let's say, copy this, right, and paste it here. And instead of male, I'll change the male to female. Let's see the total count 207. Again, these values are very closed, right? So it's not gender biased for Asian employees at least, right? We can check for other employees as well, maybe Caucasian, Latino, and Black, right? We can get a lot of idea from the kind of analysis we are performing, right? So Caucasian, let's say males and females, right? So again, let's copy this formula again, right? And in this formula, if you notice, we have to change only one thing. Instead of Asian, we want Caucasian, right? So I'll simply mention Caucasian here. Caucasian, yeah, right? And these are the total number of male Caucasians. Let's see, 131 is the count, right? And again, I'll paste the same formula and change one thing here. Asian will be changed to Caucasian, right? And males will be changed to females. So female Caucasians, right? This will give us the count of female Caucasians. If we hit here again, 140 versus 130. So it's again not gender biased for Caucasian employees as well, right? Same could be done for Latino. Let's see whether it's gender biased for Latino or not. Latino males and Latino females, right? Let's see. We'll paste the same formula here, right? With the only difference is Asian will be changed to Latino because we want to filter out all the Latinos, and males will remain as it is. So total male Latinos, right? The quotation marks I've already explained. If you're mentioning any value here, so quotation marks will be used, any categorical feature, right? Even if we'll apply the number filter, we'll soon apply number filter as well. But there also you have to use the quotation marks, right? This is basically the syntax, how the formula should be written. Yeah. So which is why we'll be using these quotation marks. All right. Executing this, I get 117 is the total number of Latino males, right? And the total number of Latino female, they will simply mention Latino females, right? And we'll get 134. So here we can see a little extra difference, right? Little difference here. Here the difference is of 9, but here the difference is of almost 17, right? Here also we had a difference of 20. All right. Same could be done with Black males and females. You can filter out males and females to find whether it's gender biased for males and females or not, in case the ethnicity is Black, right? So we'll simply enter Asian will be changed to Black, and male will remain as it is. So this will be Black males. This is 37. All right. And again, if we apply this to Black females, right? So we'll get 37. This is exactly equal, right? So this is the least biased uh, ethnicity in case of gender, right? So if you want to have a individual comparison within the ethnicity, you can say for black, if your ethnicity is black, the gender bias is least here, right? So this is how you can use count ifs on multiple conditions, right? You can even apply the third or fourth or fifth condition as well, maybe 5 conditions with the same, uh, you know, on the same data. Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say I want all the number of directors, right? Total number of directors who are female, right? They belong to United States, all right? And their age is maybe greater than 50. These are the 4 conditions I need to apply. First is I want all the directors, right, who are female, belongs to United States, and age is greater than 50. Let's see if there are any number of directors who satisfy this condition, right? So I'll be using again the count if here, count ifs, right? This count ifs will be used. I have to mention the first criteria range. So the first criteria range, because I want to filter out directors, right? And director is a designation. So I'll find this directors in the designation column. So I'll simply go to my designation column. This is the designation column, right? And out of this, I'll filter out all the directors here, right? So I think the name of the position is director. Yeah, so yes, it's director. So we have filtered out all the directors here, right? Next is we want to filter out females. We'll take the gender column here, right? All the females. Next, we want to filter out uh, people from United States, right? So we'll take the country column, simply mention a comma. We'll take the country column, filter out people from United States, right? And then finally, I want to filter out people with age greater than 50 years, right? So I'll go to this age column here, right? This is my last condition, and here I'll filter out people with greater than 50 years of age. All right, so like this, my formula is completed now. You can have a look into the formula. We have used countifs first on the designation column to filter out all the directors. Once directors are filtered out, further uh, filter is applied based on the gender column where we filtered out all the female employees that hold the position of a director, right? Then we have applied the third filter, all the female directors who belong to United States, right? And then we have applied the fourth filter, all the female employees who lives in United States and their age is greater than 50, right? So this is how a series of filters are applied. Let's see if there are any directors. So yes, we have 15 such number of directors here that follow these 4 conditions, right? You can see, if you want to see, you can see you can apply these manually as well to verify your results, right? So first we'll do is we'll go to this designation column, right? I'll unselect everything and I'll only select directors. So, right, so once I click OK, these are the list of directors that I have, right? The total count is 122. You can check here on the bottom right corner, right? 122 directors. Out of this, I'll filter out all the female directors. So I'll untick male and select only female directors. Click OK. So the count has reduced to 67 now, right? This is 67 now. Now, the third filter that I have to apply is people from United States, right? So I'll untick everything and tick only United States, right? So the counting has reduced to 42 now. All right. And finally, I'll apply this filter. And on the age column, since I want greater than 50, I'll be applying this number filter here, right? Where I'll apply greater than, I have to mention the value. So greater than 50, right? Only value has to be mentioned and we'll click OK. These are the list of 15 directors. You can see the complete information of these directors here, right? So this way you can simply verify your results. We are getting the count as 16. And if you remember, I've told you the first row of your data contains only name of the columns. Hence, we can go from second to the last here, and you'll see the total count is 15, right? The count is 15 here, right? So this way you can easily verify all your results, and you can use these kind of formulas to carry out countings, right? So the first we'll do is we'll clear all the filters, right? Clear all filters to get back our original data, all right? And you can see here, so this is the total count that we got, right? We can apply multiple conditions again with any condition of your choice. Maybe if you want to see how many, how many male directors are, how many male employees, right? And let's say are from engineering department, right? And maybe they draw a salary greater than $200,000, right? And maybe their age is less than 40 years, right? And maybe you can apply another filter belonging to United States, right? So this way you can check for multiple conditions, randomly mentioning her, right? Like this. So we can use COUNTIF again here, count IFS, right? COUNTIFs will first filter out all the males. Let's see, the gender column will filter out all the male here, right? And next is people working in engineering department. I'll select the department column, right? I'll select the department column, will filter out all the people from engineering department, right? Next filter that we have to apply is, let me see the condition, salary greater than $200,000. I'll select the salary column, right? And this will be greater than $200,000, right? And finally, we have to check for age less than 40 years. I'll go to the age column. This is the age column, right? This will be less than 40 years, right? And finally, people belonging to United States, hence country will be selected. United States filter will be applied, right? And this completes my formula, right? Let's see if there are any such employees who, okay, so we are getting a value error here. Let's see where. Okay, the gender column and the male employees, right? So there are, okay, we got two such employees here, right? And I think we can easily filter out, or we can filter the data with all these conditions, and we'll see the output as true itself, right? So this is how you can simply, filter out the data based on any condition, right? Any condition. You can find the total number of, let's say, female employees who got 0% hike, right? Who got 0% hike, right? And then we can find the male employees with 0% hike. Right? So let's say we can simply use the count ifs again, go to the gender column, first apply the filter for females, right? And then we'll go to the hike column. And since we want 0% hike, which is why I will simply mention the value as 0, right? Simply mention the value as 0, close the bracket. Let's see, there are 275 such employees who are female with 0% hike, right? And let's check the same for male. How many male employees got 0% hike, right? So we can paste this here, change the male to female, sorry, the female to male here, right? And let's see, there are 250 such male employees who got 0% hike, right? So since the total number of employees, total number of female employees is also higher, so I think this is proportionate to the output that we have got, right? So yes, this is how you can basically apply COUNTIF using multiple conditions to carry out the countings, right? So you can simply raise your hands if you're able to follow this so that we can move ahead with the next topic, right? Any doubts are welcome. If you're facing any doubt, right, you're free to ask. All right, so we'll move on with the next topic, and the next topic is we'll discuss about the uh, average value. I hope everyone knows about average, right? You can raise your hands if you know about the average. You can drop a, you can drop a no in the chat section if you don't know about the average, right? So the shortcut to filling out the values, you can see this is the fill out flash fill that can be used, right? Right. So this is not data cleaning, guys. This is data analysis, right? This is not data cleaning. This is analysis. All right. So average, just to give you this idea, if you don't know what exactly average is, let's say if I ask you what is the average height of the people who are attending this particular session, right? If I say average height of people, attendees, right? Attendees of this session, you can simply get how you can calculate this, right? You can calculate this by simply taking the sum of heights of every individual, right? Someone is maybe, let's say 150 centimeters height, then we'll take someone is 155, someone is again 156, someone is 180, right? Someone is 185. Like this, we have multiple attendees here. You can add all heights of every individual, right? And then finally, you divide it by the total number of attendees, right? You take the sum of height of everyone and divide it by the total number of attendees. This will give you the average height of an attendee here, right? So let's say if we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have taken 5 values. I'll divide this one by 5. So this will give me the average here, right? If you put equal to, you'll get the average height here, right? So let's put this equal to here and you'll get the average height. All right, so basically just, I think this is because of the bracket, right? So 165.2 is the average height of the attendees, right? So this is how you can find the average of any value, right? In technical terms, this is termed as mean of the data, right? This is mean of the data and adding all the values together. If you see the symbol here, right? The symbol is summation symbol. This symbol is a summation symbol, and this symbol is used to define the formula. If you want, I can write this on the screen so that you can note down the formula if you want, right? Otherwise, you'll get used to the summation symbol very soon, right? Because you'll be using the summation symbol almost everywhere, right? So if I talk about the formula for mean, right? If I talk about the formula for mean, mean is basically represented as mu. This is m in Latin, right? The formula is written as summation of xi divided by n, where I will go from 0 to n, right? This is the formula for mean. This is the formula for mean here, right? We never use the term average because average and mean are two different things, right? But for scalar values, if you're working with data science, we'll always use the term mean, right? You'll get this idea later. Uh, what exactly is the difference, right? I'll just give you a brief idea here. Average basically is used for scalar values, right? And mean is used for vector values, right? Scalar is basically a value that scalar is basically a term that only contains value, only value, right? But a vector contains a value as well as a direction, right? So this is the basic difference between a vector and a scalar values. All right. And this is a basic difference, and this is the term that will be used every time, right? And this is one of the measure of central tendency. All right, so this is the formula that is used to calculate, and if we expand this formula will be expanded like this. You put down the value of every I and then mention the, let's say this is x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 and so on up till xn here, and this will be divided by n, right? So this is how the formula has been uh, expanded, and this is exactly the formula that we have used in our formula bar, right? Where we have taken sum of height of every individual and divided by the total number of individuals here that gave us the mean height. This is the mean height that is given, right? And this is exactly what we want to find, the average height of attendees in this session, right? So this is how we can simply expand this. And this is one of the measures of central tendency, right? There are two other measures, the median and the mode. We'll discuss about this later. All right, so this is the average. Now, this average can be calculated on combining it with the if, right? Where if will introduce conditions, right? And how this can be done? It can be done using average if, right? The name of the function is average if in Excel, right? And everywhere the technical terms are used, the technical term is mean, right? So, of course, you'll get used to this term from today itself, because every time we're talking about the average value, we'll term it as mean. All right, so let's say I want to find the average height, or let's say not the average height, but let's say average salary of a male employee in this organization versus the average salary of a female employee in this organization, right? So that I get to know whether the organization is biased while paying the compensation for the services to male or females or not, right? Because we saw the total number of employees, or the total number of male and female employees are different, right? These are the total count of male and female employees, and these two counts are different. But by dividing this, uh, by taking the average salary, we'll get to know whether males and females are paid equally or not in this organization, right? So let's do that. And average is basically can be easily calculated using average if, right? Average if function, and this will give you the arithmetic mean, basically the average, right? For the cells specified in a given condition or a criteria, right? So you uh, get the average value based on a condition, right? So let's see what exactly is the output it is looking for, right? And for the output, we have to provide the inputs first, right? And the kind of input that we will provide will be these three inputs. First is range, second is criteria, and third is average range, right? So we need to differentiate these three terms, or we have to understand these three terms to specify the correct value as per our requirement, right? So we want to find the average salary of a male employee, right? So we want to find average salary. Hence, the average range becomes my salary column, right? I hope everyone understands that you cannot find the average of categorical values. Let's say if I ask you to find the average of United States, China, and Brazil, this is not practically possible, right? Because these are categorical values. You can only find average of numerical values, right? Which is termed as continuous values in the field of data science, right? So hence, the salary column becomes my average range, right? And the range and the criteria that I have to mention. All right. So the criteria I have to mention, I have to select that particular range in this range column here or range input. Right. So since I want to filter out all the male employees, right? Which is why in the range, I'll simply select the gender column, right? Watch the formula in the formula bar here. I'll go to my gender column. This is my gender column. I'll filter out all the male employees, right? I filtered out all the male employees, and next I have to mention is the average range, right? So I'll pass the annual salary column in the average range. What it will do is it will filter out the male employees first and then calculate the average of the filtered male employees. Hence, it will give us the average salary of a male employee in this organization, right? So let's see. So this is basically $114,188. You can decrease the total number of decimal places up to 0 places of decimal, right? So it's a number, and this is the value that we are getting, right? The same formula can be used, right? The same formula can be used, only males can be changed to female here, right? Male can be changed to female, getting the average salary of female employees, right? Will decrease the total number of decimal places, right? So we can see clearly there's a difference of $2,000, right? And this difference is not a difference that you can ignore, right? So you can clearly say that male employees are paid more in this organization as compared to female employees, right? Because of the difference that we are seeing here in the average value. Right? So guys, just give me a moment. I think something went wrong here. I'll reshare my screen. Just give me a moment, guys. Just give me a moment. Yeah, so I hope everyone is able to see the screen now. You can raise your hands to confirm this. Drop a yes or a no in the chat section, right? So that I can confirm the same. All right, great, great, great. So thanks for confirming, guys. All right, so this is how I hope everyone got this. How exactly we are able to calculate the average salary of male and employees, male and female employees. Right? I'll just re-explain this. Basically, you have to use the average if function, right? And average if function requires three inputs. The first is the range on which you want to apply some or the other kind of filter, right? One or the other kind of filter. So we want to apply the filter on the gender column to filter out all the male employees, right? And then I have to pass the condition. So this is the condition, the male or female are the respective conditions. And then we have to mention the average range, basically the range on which average value has to be calculated, right? Average value has to be calculated, and the average value will be calculated on salary column because I want to see the average salary of a male employee, right? Which is why you can simply mention the salary column here, right? And you'll get the values here. If you see the difference is around $2,000, right? And this is a difference that cannot be ignored. Hence, you can say it's the organization is a little biased towards male employees while paying the compensation for their services, right? All right. So, guys, I can see a few of you are mentioning, right? So, just to give you this idea, you just have to mention your doubt, and as and when the time permits, I'll take care of your doubts. All right. And please note, I cannot respond to yes or no or something like that for your queries, right? If you have any specific query, you're advised to mention that, right? If you drop a yes or no, yes, no, these kind of keywords in the chat section and you want me to respond on that, I think that will be a little vague, right? So yes, if you really have a doubt, you're free to ask in the chat section, right? Otherwise, please follow along with the session. Right? So yes, this will affect the if you update the data as well, right? This purely based on the range of data you're selecting, right? This is purely based on the range of data that you're selecting. Here, for example, I'm selecting the complete columns. So even if you add more rows here, the values will be updated, right? So let's see, I'll show you. Let's say the average salary of a female employee here is $112,314, right? Let's add a value at the end of the data, right? And let's see if it gets affected. We'll only add maybe two data. One is female, right? So this will be female, and the salary, let's enter $1,000 as the salary, right? So your average value is expected to go down, right? Let's see the average value now, right? Let's have a look at the average value, how is it has changed, right? So this has become 112,100, right? Earlier it was 300 something dollars, right? So as we can see, if you update the data, you'll be able to see the updated values here because we are taking the complete column as input. All right, so the representation here, you can remove the dollar sign. That is completely okay, right? This is just it's formatted as a currency, which is why dollar sign is present here, right? You can add a currency symbol of your country of residence, right? This is just for representation. You can represent the number as a simple number as well, right? There is absolutely no issues. You can change the formatting as you like, right? You can mention this as maybe accounting. So a dollar symbol will be present. You can mention this as a currency, right? So dollar symbol will be attached very close to it. All right. So there's absolutely no need to get confused. This is just for representation. All right. You can assume this the country of maybe the symbol of your currency. You can change the dollar sign here to any other currency format, right? Maybe euro, Chinese yen, or you know, uh, anything of your choice, right? You can select the symbol, maybe any symbol, right? And you're free to do that, right? So I hope this part is clear. You don't have to get confused, right? And these values, the high column, it's present in the form of percentage, right? The 0%, let's say 29%, for example, the actual value is 0.29, right? So let's say if you take this value here, right, I'll simply take a value, maybe 29%, right? So if I change this to number, this will be 0.29, maybe a number, right? This is 0.29 actually, but just this is representing percentage, which is why we can change the formatting here to percentage here. This will represent 29%, right? So this is all how you want to display your data. Right, so I've already told you guys, I'll be providing you this data set by the end of the session today, right? All right, so how many times were used for average calculation? I did not get this, right? Maybe your doubt is incomplete, or I'm not able to understand your doubt, right? What do you mean by how many times? It's only like average value is basically sum of numbers divided by the total number of employees, right? So sum of salaries divided by total number of employees. Right? So how many items purely depends on the condition that you're mentioning, right? So for example, the total number of male employees in our data set is 482, right? So this is basically nothing but the sum of 482 employees who hold the gender as male and divided by 482. This gives you the average salary of a male employee, right? Same goes with female. The total number of female employees we talk about here is 519, right? So this is the sum of 519 salaries divided by 519, right? So this is how average is calculated. Don't worry. Let's say if I walk you through the sum if function, right? Sum if function also works in the same way. Let's say if you want to find the total budget that is aligned for male employees in this organization, you can easily do that by using the sum if function, right? Like how average if, or let's say how count if counts the number of employees, right? Based on a condition, right? Sum if will basically add up values based on a condition, right? So let's say the total number of, you can simply use sum if here, right? Sum if will add the cells specified by a given condition, right? So you can again mention the range, criteria, and some range, right? So I simply mention I want the budget of salary for male employees. So I can simply use sum if. In the range, I'll mention the gender column, criteria as male, and some range as the salary column, right? So if we do that, right? If we do that, we'll be able to get the total sum of all the salaries of male employees. That is nothing but the budget of the male employees of this organization, right? So how this can be done, I can simply mention the gender column here, filter out all the male employees, right? And finally, mention the salary column so that these values, salaries could be added so that we can get a proper budget for the employees, male employees, right? So this is the budget for male employees. This is nothing but the sum of all the salaries of the male employees, right? And now if you can divide this by the total count of employees, right? You can divide this by the total count of male employees, which was nothing but 482, I guess, right? So you'll get the average salary. This value is exactly equals to this value. And this is how the averages are calculated. Right? So I hope this part makes it very clear how average if works and how average values are calculated based on any given condition or criteria. All right. So basically, what happens is, yes, average if can also be used on multiple conditions, right? How this can be used on multiple conditions, like how we have average if you want to mention single condition, right? So in the similar way, we have average ifs if you want to mention multiple conditions, right? And multiple conditions could be, let's say, we'll use average ifs here, right? And let me highlight this. Right, and average ifs here can be applied on multiple conditions. Let's do maybe a male versus female analysis on this data set here for the employees, right? And you'll be able to identify the differences, right? So what I'll do is I want to find maybe department wise, are the salaries equal for male and female, right? First I'll do is the salary of male and female. So I'll simply mention, let's say average salary. Okay, so we have already got this average salary of a male employee and female employee, right? Next, we'll mention the average salary of a male employee in accounting department, right? And average salary of a female employee in the accounting department, right? So we'll be able to do a proper male versus female analysis here, right? For the accounting department only, right? Have although we have the count of numbers, so we'll do that, right? And let's see. So what could be done here? I want the average salary of a male employee in accounting department, right? So again, I'll be using the average if function here, average IFS for multiple conditions. It says finds average for cells specified by a given range or criteria, right? And here it is set of conditions with a S, right? So multiple conditions can be applied. Syntax is a little different. Basically, it is reordered, right? It's not different, but it's reordered. In the first input, I have to mention the average range. This is the column on which the average value has to be calculated. Since I want the average salary, I'll be mentioning the salary column as the average range. All right. Now, next I have to mention the criteria range and the criteria. All right. So I have to simply mention criteria range and criteria range and criteria and so on. Right. So I have to mention two criteria here. First is I want to filter out all the employees from accounting department. Then I'll have to filter out all the employees in the accounting department who are males, right? Two conditions, two columns. Hence, I have to use two set of conditions on two different columns, right? So the first condition that I'll filter out all the male employees. So I'll go to gender column here, right? I'll simply go and filter out the male employees here. All right. And next is I have to filter out people from accounting department. So I've already filtered out males, right? So we have males from all the departments. Now from out of all the departments, we'll filter out people from accounting department only. So I'll simply select the department column, right? And mention the condition as accounting, right? So this way I'll be able to get the average salary of a male in accounting department, right? So in accounting department, this is very close to the average salary of a male in the overall organization, right? These two values are very close. I'll decrease the total number of values here, right? This value is very close. The difference is hardly of around, uh, $50, right? Hardly any difference. Let's talk about the average salary of a female employee, right? So what I'll do is I'll copy everything from this formula. The only difference that we have here is I'll simply, okay, let me reduce the number of decimal places, right? And we have to change this male to female to get the average salary of a female employee in the accounting department, right? So let's see. Okay, so we have females being paid higher in the accounting department than males, right? And this average value in the accounting department for female is higher than the average salary of a female employee in the overall organization, right? This basically means that since average is basically after taking sum of all the salaries, right? And since it is higher for female employees as compared to a general female employee, taking all the departments all together, this basically means we'll find some department where the average salary of a female employee is very low as compared to the overall average salary of a female employee, right? Let's do that. You'll get this idea, right? So what I'll do is, since I'm using two conditions, right? Which is why what I'll do is for the feasibility, I'll simply insert a column here and will use the feature of flash fill, right? So that multiple conditions can be specified, right? I'll insert one more column here. Right here, what I'll do is I'll mention the criterias and I'll write the problem statement here. This will be average salary of male in, let's say, the HR department, right? And then we have average salary of a female in HR department, right? So I'll mention the conditions so that I can use the feature of flash fill very easily, right? What I'll do here is I'll take the average salary of male, right? So the first condition that I'll mention is male, right? And second is the department where I'll mention the HR department, right? Then we'll have female and then again the HR department, right? So I'll take these cells as references so that I don't have to, recalculate everything every other time. All right. So here, what I'll do is I'll paste the same formula that we have copied earlier, and the department will change from accounting to HR. All right. And male will remain as it is. Right. Or what could be done is we have created these two columns. We'll remove this male and take the reference cell, followed by we'll remove the HR, right? And take the reference cell like this, right? So this will give us Okay, it says division error. KFD. Okay, I think this is all right. So, okay. It's counting the total number of HRs as 0 because the name of the department is not HR department, but it is human resources, right? Human resources, same goes here. Human resources, right? The human resources department, and this is the value, which is the average salary, right? All right, so this is maybe a little higher again than the average salary, right? So HRs in let's say male, right? Okay, so male HRs are drawing extra salary than the average salary of the male by taking all the departments. All right. In the similar way, we can again, use this formula here. We'll replace this male with a female, right? And the accounting will be replaced with the human resource. All right. And let's see. Okay, so 120,000 and $208. Females are also earning higher as compared to the average salary by taking all the departments all together, right? We can perform the same analysis for other departments, right? I'll simply mention maybe male and female, right? Like this. And we have multiple departments. So let's do that multiple times, right? And here, accounting is done. Let's talk about the engineering department, right? Here also we'll have engineering. Then talking about the next department is sales, right? The sales department, marketing, right? We have marketing, then we have IT department, right? Right. So we'll find the average salary of a male and female employee in every individual departments here, right? So what we'll do is we'll simply drag and drop these values. Maybe I'll drag and drop, and this is the average salary of a male employee in the engineering department, right? And this is the average salary of a male employee or female employee in the engineering department, right? So in the engineering department, the difference is a little high. As you can see, it's almost around, somewhere around $90,000. Sorry, yeah, $90,000 around, right? If you take this difference here, maybe this value minus this value. Okay, so it's around $9,000, right? So $9,000 is a considerable amount that is, and that too in the average salary of male and female employees in the engineering department, right? You can drag and drop it further to get all the male and female employees, right? So we can see in the IT department, the average salary of a female employee goes beyond very less as compared to the average salary of a female employee in the overall organization, right? So this is what I was talking about, because if we have higher value somewhere, we'll have lower value somewhere else to balance it out, right? And this is basically the male versus female comparison that you can see here, right? We can convert this to maybe not accounting, but yes, currency, right? You can convert this to currency and up till 0 places of decimal, right? So these are the respective values, and you can compare this, how different it is from the average salary of a male and female employees by taking overall organization, right? So this is how it can be done. And if you want, you can find the budget as well for count we already have, right? You can get the budget, which can easily be done using the sum if function, right? You don't have to do anything. Instead of using average if you use sum if, you'll be able to get the total budget, right? So this is the average salary. Let me mention this here. This is the average salary. Let's talk about the relative difference. Right? Relative difference will be taken. Let's say if the employee is a male, right? He's a male here, and this is accounting, right? And this is female here, and again accounting, right? So basically, if it's a male employee, we'll take the difference of salary from the average salary of a male employee, taking all the departments together, right? So the relative difference will be, let's say, this particular value, right, minus this value, right? So we'll get the difference here, and this is around $48, right? So the difference is not very high, right? So what we'll do is, this is the value, right? So we'll freeze this value by simply pressing F4, right? So dollar sign will be used here every single time, right? Now, next is based on a female employee, right? So what could be done is, okay, so here, let's say if I, drag and drop this, these two values have been taken for difference, but here we want, let's say, since it's a female employee, we'll subtract it from the female employee here, right? So we'll take this value, right? So we'll here, this particular value will be taken to find the difference, and this is almost $18,000. So basically, the average salary is higher in case of accounting department by $18,000. All right. In the similar way, you can calculate this difference, and you'll easily get, this is for male, right? You'll easily get how exactly the variation of the data is, right? This is 1,006, it's almost $1,600 dollars higher, right? Same goes if you subtract the average salary of a female employee with the average salary in the respective department, this is also $8,000 higher, right? Same goes if you, let's say, take this value for male minus, this is average salary of a male employee in engineering department. And as we can see, the salary is a little low for a male employee in the engineering department as compared to the overall departments here, right? Same goes with, let's say, subtracting the female's salary with respect to the female employee. Okay, I think this is, okay, so this is, all right. So I think we took some wrong value here, right? So for a female employee, this value has to be taken, right? And 7,000, around $7,000 is the difference. Same goes with male employee in the sales department. So this will be minus the salary, right? Same goes with, let's say, female employee of a sales department. We'll subtract this value by the average salary of a female employee in the sales department. This is again $3,000 less, right? So this way you can easily find which departments are better to join in case you want to join any department in this organization. This is almost $19,000 higher, right? So male employees in the marketing department, they're having the highest difference, right, with the average salary as compared with the overall organizations. Let's talk about female employees. They are again at the higher end, of course, right? They're earning a lot more as compared to other employees, right? So let's say female employees in the, sorry, male employee in the IT department is earning, of course, very less, right? $14,000 is the difference, which is a very high difference when it comes to, salary differences. Now let's talk about the female employees in the IT department. $16,000, almost $17,000. Right? And this difference is a considerable difference that you cannot ignore. Right? So this way you can simply analyze your data, write your findings, right? Out of all the departments, let's say if you have equal knowledge of all the departments, the best department to join is, let's say, a marketing department if you're a male, right? And if you're a female, the best department to join is the accounting department, because the average salary is high, which means you can ask for more pay against doing the same amount of job for this organization, right? So this is how organizations, they carry out their analysis. There are a lot more that you can analyze, right? The more you go deeper, the better insights you'll be able to receive, right? So this way you can easily, list down all your findings and you'll be able to get the outputs. Right. So yes, guys, I think that was all for today's session, right? Uh, I hope everyone is able to follow this. You can simply, raise your hands to confirm. And it is advised for everyone to practice once the session is uploaded, right? Because unless you practice, it will be very difficult for you to, uh, understand further topics. All right. So just wait for a minute, guys. I'll share a link with you, right? And this link, on this link, I'll be sharing the data set, right? So just if you wait for maybe, 5 more minutes, I'll be able to share this data with everyone so that you can replicate this and use this data while you're practicing by following the session, right? Just for 5 minutes, wait for uh, the session, right? I'll upload this data, or I'll share the link and I'll upload it later. I think that will also do, but it's important for you to have a link. Right? So wait for maybe 5 minutes, right? I'll simply, let's see this one, 3. All right. So I'm sharing this link with everyone in the chat section, right? You can follow this link and you'll be able to get the data, right? So it's a GitHub link. If you want to know how exactly you can download the data from GitHub, you're advised to go through the first preparatory session, right? So you can follow this link and I'm sharing this link one more time, right? So please take this link and you'll find the data set on this link. All right. So yes, guys, with this note, we are wrapping up the session for today. I hope you find today's session helpful in understanding a few key concepts. And of course, I suggest every one of you to practice once the session is uploaded, right? This will help you to move ahead and understand everything as we proceed ahead with the further course, right? So with this note, let's wrap up the session for today, guys. And I thank every one of you for bearing with me post your scheduled time, right? And I wish every one of you a good night.